Well, Hal, thank you very much. And Diane, we're all very flattered that you would choose to spend your anniversary. Maybe you didn't choose to spend your anniversary here, but you certainly accepted the invitation, and we're happy both of you are here. I'm fascinated by what you're saying about the airline programs, Hal. And of course, they're all moving, and I'd be interested to know, I want you to explain to us how it's all going to work. Well, we know that Delta and United are now giving awards according to the money spent, not the miles flown. Right. Southwest went to that in 2011. Now it's going to a system where awards are awarded according to the day and the time and the demand and whatever they want to do that particular day. How are consumers going to respond to this?
Well, I think this goes back to having the programs economically viable. And it is interesting that the airlines initially, the idea of having miles, in part I'll say one of the reasons why we had miles, not the amount you were spending, was there was concern at the outset that this would be a taxable event. And so you would be getting a free trip, but it'd be taxed. Having it treated as miles added a certain cachet to it. I also point out, though, in 1982, when we were doing this, 1981, a round-trip coach ticket was about $400. A round-trip first-class ticket was about $600. And thus, we had a 50% premium if you flew first class. And a deeply discounted excursion ticket, $99 one way, about $200. So there was sanity in the original AAdvantage program. Very few people flew on the excursion. Now, when first class went to $3,500 and everybody was flying at $200, the programs became somewhat less rational. I think the airlines moving to a revenue base makes a lot of sense. It should have happened a long time ago. I think it's been, the airlines individually have been hesitant to make any move that would upset their customer base for fear they wouldn't be matched. I think we're going to have to get used to the fact that what we spend needs to be rationally appropriate for the rewards. Recently, one of the things that came back to mind, it used to be, last time I looked at this, and it was probably 10 years ago, but there was a time where the executive platinum could spend $198 on a weekender fare to San Francisco. If you did that 3 times, you'd spend $600, and you could earn a $2,500 coach ticket. Now, that's not sustainable. Now, I think we're going to get used to the fact that programs are going to require us to spend slightly more appropriately in return for the free travel. Long answer. The key for the airlines is the change needs to come in a fashion that seems appropriate. I think there's soft letdowns that are possible. Some of the hotel companies have reduced the value of the hotel points by as much as 90%. So I think there's a little more shock going on than we would like, but the only defense is it is irrational to be giving someone 3 or 4 times what they spent.
What about these people who are good at data? Why aren't they coming to advertising?
Well, I think it's interesting, the number of us that are in direct marketing, and I will at the outset say it's kind of funny, we rebrand this industry about every 10 years. I mean, I started running a computer service bureau or a data management firm or a data processing firm. Now it's big data, but it's all been the same thing about how do we use increasingly powerful computers to manipulate data. I don't think any of us that are, certainly in my generation, and probably not many that are in their 40s, decided somewhere along the line, I'm going to go into big data and direct marketing. Most of us kind of backed into it. I think it's exciting that more people are realizing that a career in the data-driven side of advertising or marketing is a great career. But historically, we've had accidental approaches. Somehow, going across campus, there was another of my classmates that said, hey, I've got an interview with IBM this afternoon. I can't make it. Do you want to go? I said, well, why not? Let's go see what IBM is saying. And so he and I both ended up going to work for IBM in Tampa, Florida in 1965, and then being put through the IBM training program. That led to the start of Epsilon because of another series of crazy events. But had I said no to that interview, I might yet have been in Baytown, Texas.
But you went... You went up to Harvard. I got an MBA at Harvard Business School.
All right. And I guess the third of these was running into a classmate and asking him what he was doing. And we both agreed it might be fun to take on a project I had, and that's what led to starting Epsilon. Late 60s, 70s, they had not automated their membership records. And I, because of my having been at IBM and because I had working at NASA, had met the head of the president of the board of trustees, they asked me as a volunteer to help automate, to help go look at whether they should automate their records. And no, Epsilon is not for SAE, but when we set out to find a firm that specialized in membership, we couldn't find one. So the opportunity that started Epsilon was realizing there was no one specializing in membership record keeping in 1969. ADP was specializing in payroll. But we looked at it and said, okay, well, if the largest fraternity is not automated, and my partner was Sigma Chi, the second, that wasn't automated, we said, why don't we just kind of start a little business? We actually called it Fraternal Systems. And I had worked for BCG, Boston Consulting Group at the time. They had a very good theory about market share, and if you have dominant market share, you can set the pricing. And I recognized if there were no the fraternities hadn't automated, we could be the dominant fraternity national record-keeping firm. So we had 16 of the 18 national offices as a client by the end of the first year. But we didn't want to stop with 16 national offices of college fraternities, and Fraternal Systems was a limiting name. Epsilon in set theory, if you're familiar with set theory, A is a member of set B. The little epsilon connotes membership. So we decided to call it Epsilon Data Management. They have subsequently shortened it to Epsilon. Then we ended up with state teachers, and we ended up with
you had the ACLU, you had Jerry Falwell, and you helped him raise enough money to build Liberty U.
Yeah, ACLU and Jerry Falwell meant that we were eclectic in our clients.
You were an equal opportunity. Well, you started Brierley. It was very successful, about to be sold to a big firm in Japan.
Yes.
And you also started eRewards. Tell us about eRewards. It has to do with paying people to take surveys, doesn't it?
Yes.
Or rewarding people, shall we say?
And I would say that somewhere along the line, I became fascinated not only with, as I was saying, rewarding people for purchase, but rewards for time. And we started eRewards during the dot-com phenomena. And we launched eRewards literally in March of 2000, started the work in 99, and by June of 2000, the world had collapsed with the nuclear winter. But the concept for eRewards was we were going to give you airline miles or hotel points for looking at advertising. And at the time, there was only about $1 billion of advertising being done in 2000.
You mean online?
Online,
yeah,
online
okay.
advertising. And one of the lessons I would say as an entrepreneur is we were getting 15 cents for each email that we were able to get someone to look at. And someone came along and said they would pay us $10 for a survey. And even though, remember during .com, first mover advantage was critical. And none of you are old enough to remember, but it also was essential to spend your money as quickly as possible because you wanted to get market share. But when I saw $10 as opposed to 15 cents, my old world instincts kicked in. And so we pivoted from advertising to research. I would point out today, people use pivot as a term even if you pivot into another worthless place. I think pivoting requires you find revenue as opposed to just twirling, but anyway. So eRewards started, and it grew. We were at about 108 million, 105 million in sales when the 2009 problems hit. I can point out that research, while we had the terrible industry impact, our sales were flat and our profits were up. So that research is something that continues on even during bad times. I think the biggest problem with research is when people don't know whether it's good or bad. and we have a couple of research experts, but when the industry doesn't know which way to go, research calms a little bit, but otherwise, people need to listen to the consumer.
You're saying good or bad? You mean you read the results of the survey?
Oh, no, I'm saying whether the economy is going up.
I misunderstood.
If we're going into a Great Depression, you need to research what the heck you're doing. If we're going into a great up, people will research. I think when you don't know which way to go, you kind of pause for a minute.
Now, you're involved in a company called Evolver with Dallas Venture Capital. You're an investor, undoubtedly an important advisor, and it is working in games, but these are mobile games.
Yes?
Trying to get people to stay with the game longer. You said, and I'll bet you're right,
Yep.
it's a lot easier to keep a customer than to go and get a new one.
Yes.
Costs less.
Yes. No, I think, and as I say, I am the evangelist for rewards for engagement. I'll circle back to Evolver, but one of the reasons that eRewards succeeded, and I launched another firm called eMiles. That was a complete failure. So every so often you get so confident you know what you're doing, you screw up. I went back to eMiles with the idea of rewarding people for looking at ads because I was obsessed. And we never could get the media buyer to care. The media buyers, in my mind, are lazy. And if there's one in the room and they want to dispute that, I'd love to talk about it. But anyway, that they can buy a Super Bowl commercial, or if they can buy a little bit of search, they can go home. So when I come to them and say, hey, I can give you an engagement where people are going to watch your entire 30-second commercial, they're going to answer 5 or 6 questions, and you only pay if they do it. They say, well, I don't know, what's an engagement? So we've gotten up to 85% of consumers to watch a TV commercial for 5 miles, 10 cents. And I'm convinced that rewarding people for time is going to be a big breakthrough. Now, I bring it up because the eRewards was the same concept, but it was for a need-based service. The market research industry needs that survey completed. They're not going to get their job done without it. No one needed to watch this TV commercial for eMiles. Now, Evolver is in a very interesting space of rewarding people for electronic game play. And the game publishers need people to play the game. So I do think that this space of incentivizing consumers for time in game could be very interesting.
Now,
the key is the incentives have to be very inexpensive to offer. Yeah.
And this is not like GameStop. I know you've worked for them where you go to the store and you buy the game, but these are mobile apps that you get for free.
This is mobile.
And so the people go from app to app to app and game to game to game,
Yeah,
and you want them to stay.
How many of you are avid electronic game players? Raise your hand, admit it, even like getting a free airline ticket, it's okay. Anyway, so I am not. I have enough other time sinks that I don't get into it, but the longer you play in these free games, the more advertising revenue the game publisher can get. And mobile's play right now, and if there's one thing I think is going to reshape everything in our life, and email, did reshape everything for us back in the mid-90s and beginning of 2000. Mobile is changing everything again. I mean, there's no question about it. Our habits are changing. Everything we do, the phone is playing a role. The amount of time people use the phone to play the game is a monetization opportunity for the publisher. And I think that gameplay, they make their money either by convincing you to buy up to the next level of difficulty without being good. Something I always thought would be good in college. But if you want to be a better player, you can buy your way in as opposed to being good. And so that's revenue. The other is advertisers. I am intrigued that Diana's a big Words with Friends. Jean, her sister, is a bigger Words with Friends, which is a problem because I use win every game. It's the cheater. She knows it because the words that I use are not. Anyway, now watching Words with Friends. At the end of Words with Friends, you have to watch a stupid commercial unless you want to do the paid version. So I think this idea of rewarding people for games.
But how are you rewarding them?
Evolver is actually at the moment rewarding with recognition, and in the end, I think they need to be using a currency, and the key will be having an inexpensive currency to buy that is perceived as valuable.
A currency to buy products or to buy more games?
I'm saying
or?
they need to have something that's inexpensive for them that you value a lot.
What would that be?
We haven't done that yet.
Okay. Well, now, I know that you're selling Brierley maybe by the end of this month, and you said you intend to start a new venture. What is that?
The new venture will be this rewards for engagement concept. And I am convinced that, and a good example would be the newspaper industry, that many people view as a dinosaur, but we've done a lot of research helping one of the major papers, and people value local news, people value news. The key is, I think, to keeping you subscribing to a newspaper or to a magazine is keeping you engaged with it. So if I can provide an incentive for you, if every day you went to the Dallas Morning News website, you earned $1, and you just had to visit it at least once, and every month you had $30, and you could use the $30 on anything you wanted to, would that change your likelihood of paying $30 a month to be a subscriber? Probably. If the $30 you earned was there to buy down the price of an opera ticket or a Stars ticket or a membership at the zoo, I think we can craft rewards that have no cost, that drive profitable behavior, and that if you do that, it's a win-win, unlike the idea of some of the existing programs.
Well, now, why paying part of the opera ticket? Looking at that, why does that have no cost? Somebody's got to pay the Dallas Opera. I mean, you help the Dallas, Diane helps the Dallas Opera.
Keep in mind the Dallas Opera ticket is probably $200, $250.
Yeah.
$30 off would be a minor issue. One of the tricks is if we encourage people who claim the opera ticket, if we encourage the people that otherwise wouldn't have gone to the opera, that's a win. If we only sold it to people who were going to go to the opera, it's $30 off 200, 15%. My guess is filling the opera seat, especially not on opening night. I mean, there's an art to this. Believe it or not, when the new play opens at the Dallas Theater Center, this opening night's fine. Second night or third night, before the buzz, there's some empty seats. So it's possible to craft something that says going to the Dallas Morning News website, you can get a $30 savings for the second night at the Dallas Theater Center to see some of Kevin Moriarty's genius. Okay.
What about all of you? Questions, comments?
Anybody want to go to the theater?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Can I quote you from yesterday's newspaper?
Yeah, and that was a very unanticipated, unintended coincidence that Cheryl Hall published that
Very
yesterday.
nice story.
I thought that's why this was all integrated communications.
No, that would have been too good.
So you said, I fear that 20 years from now, programs like AAdvantage, will be viewed as the stupidest thing done by businesses in the 20th century.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to come to your defense here. I
don't believe they are, but go ahead.
I believe that if it wasn't for the Advantage program that you helped create, that American Airlines would have gone under at 9/11. I think that saved the country.
Yeah, I do believe, and I'll say this on the record, I mean, Legend tried to, here we are at a Legend event. Legend Airlines tried to come into Dallas. I think the AAdvantage program made it almost impossible for them to do that. I think these programs have been tremendously strong defense tools. And I think American Advantage is spectacular for America. And I think we just need to lightly let the thing down a little bit, make it a little harder to get some tickets, maybe we don't have to give 2.5 times mileage bonuses to the Executive Platinum, maybe 1.5 times would be enough. And we're all going to be happy. Now, I don't think these programs go away unless they very, very abruptly slap the consumer in the face.
Well, happy anniversary, Diane and Hal, and thank you very much.
Thank you.